How do you view the political leaders of Nepal, even till today, using the gruesome royal massacre as a card for their short-term political benefits?
That part is unfortunate. I hope nobody plays that or uses that tragic, occasion for personal or group interest, because there is larger question that remains unanswered in the minds of the Nepalese public and the rest of the world. And from judging from that perspective, there is yet to be done to satisfy the query in the minds of the people, how they lost. And that, in many ways, I think that is the beginning of the end of monarchy from my point, perception.
During the Maoist insurgency, we had huge population internally displaced. Like in Sri Lanka and in Pakistan, we have lots of Nepalese refugees within Nepal. Has UNHCR looked into this aspect?
Indeed, you have a large number of people who were displaced by those conflict, the conflict here in the country. And UNHCR, together with OHCHR, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and OCHA, has put together a unit that was looking into those issues. The difference here is that the people who were displaced internally did not end up in camps like in Pakistan and Sri Lanka. So it was much more difficult to identify them, to register them. And it was found that very often their needs were very similar to the populations who had not been displaced but were also affected by the conflict.
The last census we had was in 2001, and UNFPA will be leading the census in 2011. During this time, the issue of ethnicity in Nepal has become a prime focus. Will there be an objective to recognize the ethnic diversity of Nepal in 2011 census?
Absolutely. And it's UNFPA is leading the support to government's census. And I hope that we can help government make sure that they have the best census they've ever had, and one which really reflects all of the citizens of Nepal, and then helps government and citizens understand what they can do to further their own development.
In February this year, Finland's Minister of Foreign Trade and Development, Dr. Paavo, visited Nepal, and he promised to double the aid for Nepal by 2012. Now that the government has changed in Nepal and the world faces recession, will this generous offer still stay valid?
It's still valid, but it's good to remember that in order to reach that goal, the sincere efforts by all parties involved are needed. We, development partners of Nepal, we are growingly concerned about the security situation. And for that reason, I would like to throw the ball in this issue to the court of the government of Nepal.
During the last decade, Nepal has gone through a turbulent time, and during this time we have seen a strong role of international community. To what extent is it true that India lets US decide its Nepal's policies?
I think that is totally false. I think both countries have interests in Nepal. They coincide in many, many ways, particularly in the most fundamental ways, I would say, of a desire for a democratic and a prosperous Nepal with people moving forward in economic ways and social ways. But each country has its own priorities and its own policies, and I think both of us pursue those independently.
During the decade-long conflict in Nepal, thousands were disappeared by both sides at conflict. How is the bill of disappearance progressing?
Well, the ordinance on disappearance has expired, and the government informs us that it is introducing a new bill which will do two things. It will criminalize disappearances, and it will also establish a commission to investigate the disappearances that took place by both sides during the conflict. We have been providing our views at the government's request to ensure that this legislation meets international standards. It's important for the victims that they achieve their right to know, that is the truth, and secondly, that there is accountability for those responsible.
Nepal's new government was formed in a very unnatural way. Both the Prime Minister and yourself lost in the CA elections. How do you justify your position as heading the government as the Foreign Minister?
In my case, in my constituency, it was very difficult to go for election, and it was a hopeless case, and I declared that this has been an unfair and election, and this is no election, so I went out of the campaign, and I went out of my constituency. We were told that we have to accept this election because it is very important, you know, the CA election, and we have to accept it. So we accepted it and election. So it was no free and fair election.
It is heavily debated that foreign aid is counterproductive and it contributes to corruption. What is your opinion on this?
Ultimately, it depends on how it's used. I don't think aid in itself can corrupt or is, you know, is is insulated against corruption. I think it could go either way. It depends on how you use it. If you have a system where there are no clear rules and there's not enough transparency, and you know, there's an ethics deficit in the country, then there's going to be corruption.
We have seen that countries like Sri Lanka, where despite having conflict, they have done pretty well with foreign investments. How can Nepal invite and safeguard FDI, foreign direct investments?
The government has to give very clear signals, not only by words, by demonstrating that there is a stability in this country. There is no danger in this country. If that happens, I think investment should not be a problem. I know there are people who are ready to invest in this beautiful country.
After the global economic crisis was announced, there were skepticisms that the Obama administration had a calculated plan with it and that they had a quick fix in due course of time. Post 9/11, there was a similar allegation against the Bush administration. Do you see any truth to that?
Over the long run, Bush did not bring the Congress in, did not seek a broader consensus on actions that were very, very serious, historically serious. And I think he pushed presidential power far past where it should have been. I think that Obama is really taking a different tack as he goes about looking at health care, the economy, other issues that, for better or worse, he is bringing the Congress in because I think his version of change, his view of change, is to make it permanent, to legislate, to try to build consensus.
In 21st century today, there is an irony to the discovery of nuclear weapons. Osama bin Laden has threatened openly that he is planning to ship in a suitcase bomb filled with nuclear weapon into the United States. Do you see that as a real threat based on the research you have done on Oppenheimer?
Well, Oppenheimer himself, ironically, warned of this possibility. As early as 1947, just 2 years after Hiroshima, he gave secret testimony to the United States Senate. It is going to be harder than I make it sound like for a terrorist group to build a real atomic weapon. We should be addressing this, I believe, by trying to eliminate all nuclear weapons.
Thank you for being with us during the last 6 months. We will soon be back with the season 2 of Power Talks. Meanwhile, I look forward to your email and feedback at the email address powertalkstv@yahoo.com. Till then, good luck and goodbye.